All right. Welcome to the talk. My name is Zhang. I'm a assistant professor here in the computer science department. My research area is security and applied cryptography with applications to blockchain systems. So I'm new to the EC community. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to present our work here. This talk is about the decentralization of Ethereum's builder market. It's about the empirical work we recently did. So this will, I think, complement the previous talks about MEV well. I guess for this audience, I don't need to convince you that we care about decentralization because that's what makes a blockchain a blockchain. However, I think it's much harder to convince anyone that we do have decentralization and we will continue having it in the future. So why are we concerned, with losing decentralization? There are many various reasons that might cause that concern, but one of the big challenge faced by the community is this phenomenon known as miners extractable value or maximum extractable value. Just to remind you, the previous talk talked about this set up the stage well. MEV refers to this profit that you can gain by manipulating transaction ordering. To give you some concrete numbers, in the last 30 days, we're talking about approximately $1 million in revenue per day, and this number varies, drastically over time, but it's a rather significant number. The primary concern is one of the primary concerns is that MEV is a centralizing force because not all validators can extract MEV equally well. So the concern is that a handful of big validators will end up extracting most of the MEV and leaving the regular validators very little, and these hobbyist validators will be driven out of the existence because they don't get the sizable profit. The crypto community, in particular the Ethereum community, recognized the issue and is actively engaged in deploying mitigation solutions. And the current system that's deployed to mitigate this is called the proposer-builder separation. So Tim talked about this already. Just to recap, remind you how PBS works. So the idea is that, remember that the issue is that validators, not all validators are equally well at extracting MEV. So why don't we introduce a specialized market that does exactly that? So in Ethereum today, right, when a validator is due to propose a block, and therefore becomes a block proposer, the proposer goes to the builders market and sell the block space to a group of builders. And this group of builders will bid to get their block included in the blockchain as the next block. And the proposer will pick the highest the highest bid, right? The block with the highest bid, and add that to that block to the blockchain. So the current implementation is known as MEV boost auctions. So what's in there for the builders? Well, the builders, they build the block and they extract the MEV from that block. And what's in there for the proposer? Well, the proposer collects the auction revenue. This system has been in operation since the merge, since 2022. It's important to understand why the community think this will address the centralization concerns. Well, the intuition is that now the validators do not need to extract the MEV by themselves. They simply run the auction and they collect the auction revenue. And if the builders market is competitive, then the auction revenue is going to be close to the actual MEV that the builder extracts, because builders will compete with each other and they will bid most of the MEV in the bid. Okay. So I said, ideally, this is what's supposed to happen. So what do we have in practice? Is builders market giving us what we want? The answer is quite unclear. And the important reason is that the builder market itself ends up pretty centralized. So, currently, this builder market, essentially the 90% of the auctions are won by only 3 entities. There are 3 builders who build approximately, 90% of all the blocks in this builder market. So this is not a secret, right? This builder centralization is well known by the community, and it's thought to be okay, right? Here I'm quoting official, like Ethereum's official, description of the mechanism. Here's the argument that what we really care about is the decentralization of validators. So as long as we have that, then it's okay to have a centralized builder market. Well, I think what's missing from this argument is that the tool is not independent. Right? The performance, the efficacy of the builder market directly impacts the validator's revenue. And the validator revenue and incentive in the long run plays an important role in the decentralization of validators. So our goal with this empirical study, really? My timer only counts to 7 minutes.
For the 12-minute, and then there's a little bit of buffer.
Okay, I see. All right. Well, our goal is to kind of refute the idea that you can think about the builder market and validators decentralization sort of independently. And we want to understand what is the implication and quantify the implication using data. Specifically, we want to ask 2 questions. First, does the mechanism described, the iterated auction, does that indeed incentivize computation? There's a reason to say yes, because it's, the auction is akin to an English auction. You guys are, better experts on English auction than I am. But I believe it does have nice features that encourages computation. But there's also reason to say no, because English auction doesn't typically have a deadline. But here you do, and also when you have only 3 parties in the auction, you have to wonder if they do act independently. The second question that's a little bit more subtle is, even if the auctions are completely competitive in that players bid close to their true value, it's still not clear if the auction revenue is close to the MEV being extracted by builders. To consider this counterexample, where let's say for a given slot we have 3 builders. Alice extracts 100 ETH. Bobby extracts 10 and Charlie extracts 9.5. Okay, so when the builders have drastically different what we call block building capacity, what will happen is Alice will win the auction, but the auction revenue is going to be 10 plus epsilon, a little bit more than the second highest true value. So we argue that in this case, proposer is incurring a loss of up to 90 ETH. The reason is that the proposer still has the option to not use the builder market, right? If the proposer were to build the block by themselves, then the proposer can get up to 90 ETH more. So the key point is that these are the 2 reasons that the proposer could incur a loss, and these kind of losses can lead to what we call instability of PBS, right? So the proposer now will be motivated to build the blocks by themselves if they cannot get if they cannot get optimal revenue from the market. And this leads to kind of instability of the separation between proposer and the builder. Okay. Right, since I only have a couple minutes left, we'll just jump directly to the results. Right, to kind of quantify and understand this these 2 forms of loss, there's a kind of a practical challenge we have to conquer, that is the lack of auction data, because these auctions are off-chain and the data is not available unless you archive it. And that's what we did. We started to archive such data since the merge. And with that, we were able to quantify the loss. So I will just give the results. So there are two reasons for the proposer to incur a loss, and the loss from auction not being competitive turns out to be quite modest. But the loss from builders to have different block building capacity is an order of magnitude more significant, right? These are many months of hard work by my students and literally in two numbers, resulting in two numbers, couple of numbers, okay? And anecdotally, things are getting worse because the inequality is getting worse as some of the integration is getting worse. So that's about the first part of the work. The second part of our paper, I will only now briefly talk about is then we are interested in understanding what caused the different capabilities in building the block. So this has to do with how blocks are built by builders. So at the very high level, builders receive transactions from various sources. These transactions are called order flows, and then they come up with the best combination of different order flows using some sort of usually greedy algorithms because the algorithm need to run very fast. So what caused this inequality? The short answer is not these profitable order flows. They are not openly accessible. There's access barriers around this, lucrative information, if you will. This also, we believe, explains partly the builder centralization because profitable order flows can only be accessed by a small group of people. That's what we observed in practice. And there are, two reasons to have these access barriers. The first reason is there's a trust problem between the provider of order flow and the builders. And second, there's a incentive for the proposer and the order flow providers to form an exclusive relationship. Let me talk about the second point a little bit more because that's, I think, a more interesting reason. So community call this phenomenon integration. If an order flow provider, work with a builder, exclusively. If the order flow provider only share the order flow with a specific builder. So what we find with some detection methodology is we find that all three top builders who collectively build 90% of the block, all of them have some integration going on. Okay, and integration is effective because this gives you a competitive edge in the auction, and it's also attractive in that there's a strong incentive encouraged by this mechanism to form integration. So the incentives comes from the fact that if a order flow is openly shared with everyone, then everyone will kind of compete, and then all the revenue will be, captured by the auctioneer. But if the order flow is only shared with one builder, then this builder can win the auction without bidding much, and the surplus can be then split between the builder and the provider of the order flow. So this is what this is exactly what happened in practice, and we observed that some order flow providers started sending order flows to everyone, and then form a kind of integration with a specific builder. This yields to in some extreme cases hundreds of ETH worth of surplus. Okay, so I'm now wrapping up. So this is a quick overview of our archive article. Online, you can find the paper at this link. We talk about the builder centralization, several reasons we believe that contributes to the centralization, and builder centralization leads to a quantifiable proposer loss. And we believe it will contribute to instability of PBS and eventually, if not handled, centralization of validators again. Okay, and also centralization causes short-term issues like censorships and so on, which is important but out of scope for this study. I know I'm out of time. I will just stop here.